Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, we asked the question, is Old Grandad 16 worth the $200 plus price tag? Let's find out. Run the video. All right then, folks, thank you for joining us for another new and exciting episode here on the Whiskey Cove, where we will be reviewing and delving deep into Old Grandad 16. 16 is representing the 16 years of age that this bottle is in front of us. So, Old Grandad, we did a video about Old Grandad, and it did really well. I think go back a year or so ago, where we asked the question just how good Old Grandad bourbon is. That was before this bottle was released. We had the Old Grandad regular straight whiskey, or we had the bonded, and then we had the Old Grandad 114. And the kind of synopsis of that video was, it was very good stuff for the price. It ranges from like $10 to $30, excellent for the price. The one takeaway that we did mention in that video, and that was that we felt that it could have done with a little bit more age, especially the 114. We felt like it could have done with a bit of age. So I don't know if folks from Jim Beam were watching that video and thought, well, we got a couple of barrels in the back. If this dude wants some Old Grandad with an extra age, let's give it to him. One thing we weren't ready for what is a budget whiskey up to $30, was them to come back with a $200 price tag on it. So I bought this when I was in Kentucky back into the summer for about $225 with tax. So a decent amount of money. I didn't really want to pay that much money on Old Grandad stuff, quite frankly. But I do like Old Grandad so much, I felt I owed it to the brand and I owed it to you folks at home to really be able to talk about this whiskey and review with you. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about this whiskey. So like I said, it is age 16 years old. The label looks a little like that. So unlike the 114, which shares exactly the same bottle, this isn't 114 proof, this is 100 proof or 50% ABV. So a little less proof, which is interesting because I thought that when there was rumors of it coming out that it might sit at 114 proof like the regular Old Grandad up there. However, it isn't. It is the Jim Beam's High Rye Mash Bill, which is the same as the Baker's High Rye Mash Bill that they released in 2024. With that being said, I do like the bottle. I've always liked the Old Grandad bottles. They have really awesome, unique wide mouth here, which is cool for pouring and really great for nosing. And they have a real cork here. So just looking at the whiskey in the glass here, it does look quite thick and it looks more. It's not as dark as I'd expect for a 16-year whiskey. It's 50% ABV, so it's not quite barrel proof. When you get barrel proof, you get more darker looking whiskeys, but you also get that with more age, and it's not super dark. It's definitely more on like the coppery amber side, as opposed to like a mahogany sort of color. So that's caught me off guard a little bit. It does look darker in the bottle, but when you look through it, there's definitely like an orange hue to it. But before we go in for a nose here, the month is January. I'm starting my fitness journey, and today's video is sponsored by ZBiotics. So ZBiotics has been a multi-month sponsor of our channel, so we're gonna do a quick 45-second ad here. So ZBiotics is really good for me. I love using ZBiotics because when I'm doing whiskey videos, I don't want to wake up rough the next day. I want to go to the gym, I want to work out, I want to get on with my life. And ZBiotics is the perfect thing for that. So ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. We have a link down below for 15% off your first order. Definitely use that link, support our sponsors, and support the channel by supporting our sponsors. Use the link, 15% off. That is ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic. Thank you to those folks for sponsoring today's episode. With that being said, let's nose this whiskey. Old Grandad 16. Wow. That is, there's a lot going on there in a very good way. I'll be honest, I haven't tried this whiskey. This is the first time I've ever nosed it. I poured it, left it off to the side. I recorded a video and I'm now coming back to it. Let it breathe a little bit. But there's a big cherry cola vibe going on here. Like a bottle of Coke, like that cherry Coke style. And it also has this really nice, ever so slight rye note that really brings it all together. I can't get over how much cherry I'm getting for this. It almost has vibes of like a Jim Beam stag, if you know what that is, like the old like red cherry stag that they used to do. It kind of noses a little bit like that, but not as artificial. A little bit, maybe a bit of bubble gum in there as well. 50% ABV, you're not going to get a lot of proof on the nose, and neither am I with this, and maybe that's why they did it. Maybe a touch of like strawberries as well. It is quite fruit forward, which is really nice. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of the nose of the old Gand-Dad straight whiskey, which is actually the cheapest one, but has a phenomenal nose for the price. Touch of spice there as well, maybe clawing up a little bit like a black pepper, but it's not really tickling my nose or anything, but it's definitely something going on there. Some vanillas, some honey there as well. It's very, very inviting. I'm really surprised. Full disclosure as well, I tried to review whiskey before I kind of hear everybody's experience with it. However, we left this for a few months and people have been talking a lot about it because it does have that high price tag. And it hasn't been positive, but the nose so far has been excellent. Let's see how it stacks up on the palate. Let's go in for a taste here. Old Gand-Dad 16, bring it on it hard. So just as I'm chewing through some of the notes here on this palate, one thing that jumps out to me straight away on the palate, this whiskey is more reminiscent of the 114 in terms of the palate. It is much more heated up in terms of the spice level. You get more cinnamon there, more baking spices, more of the high rye mash bill sitting on your palate and dancing a little bit there. But what this does differently to the 114, that has a nice little bit of sweetness, that kind of honey, kind of brown sugar off the bat, helps with some of that fieriness of the rye spice. And Jim Beam in general, it does drink a little hotter, I find. If you're someone who likes the relaxed and dessert flavors of like an Old Forester, this might not be the whiskey for you. But if you're someone who likes whiskey and doesn't mind a little bit of the burn, doesn't mind the higher rye, doesn't mind more oakiness, as this does have oak tannins there, it does come away a little bit from the sweetness and dry out on the back end. Let's explore that finish a little more here. There is definitely more of that cherryness that comes through. That cherry Coke vibe is there again, and it's very nice. But it does get a little astringent towards the end with some of the oak tannin notes. It needs a little sweetness in the back end because it does get a little leathery there. I don't want to say necessarily over oaked, but we are definitely delving into that kind of territory, which speaks to me as I think if they would have done this the same proof as old Gand-Dad, I'm not sure that would have worked. I think that could have potentially been over oaked, which is why they proofed it down to 50. It is a long finish, a long dry oaky finish, which is, it's okay. I like high aged bourbons, I really do. I don't mind a whiskey finishing dry. Of course, when I'm grading and rating whiskey, you want it to have balance because the masses prefer balance, but I really like aged whiskeys. So what we like to do if you're new on this channel is we have two different grading scales. So the first grading scale is value for money, A being the best value for money, F being the worst. And then the second scale is 0 through 100. So 0 being the worst whiskey and undrinkable stuff you just need to throw away, and 100 being a mythical unicorn that the likes of us will probably never drink. So value for money, $225 after tax. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for old Gand-Dad. It's a lot of money for whiskey in general. What sort of realm are we in with this price? Well, 16 years old or whiskey, we're talking about Elijah Craig 18. And it has some similar notes to the Elijah Craig 18. That's about $160 and some change. That is an older whiskey, not as much proof. What else do we have at this point? Some Willets, purple tops, kind of right around this price line. Stag Junior. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Stag Junior. Stag's a little more sweeter, but Stag Junior is like $70. So that's a little different, but that's not age stated. However, I'm waffling a little bit. Value for money, I'm gonna say a C, and that's not bad, A, B, C, D, E, F, right in the middle of the road. It should have been cheaper. It's not a bottle that I'm probably gonna rebuy just because of the price. I do really like it. We'll get into the rating on that here shortly. I just think old Gand-Dad product, even though with the 16 years, you can't brand old Gand-Dad as something as a premium product. So this price should probably be around $100. Even that's a little much in my humble opinion. So C, value for money, and even that is probably a little gracious. And then the score, 0 through 100. So this is a tough one. Like I said earlier on, I like aged whiskey, but I think that for some folks out there, as soon as that kind of really leathery oak tannin note kicks in, it might be one of those, you know, you might pull a little bit of a face there. But for me, I need a grader on how I like this whiskey. I really liked it. I think the nose was absolutely lights out. I think the palate was really good again, very, very good. That spice kicked it up a little bit as well, but that finish maybe let it down a little bit. It was still good, but not as good as the rest. On the basis of that, I'm gonna give this an 85 out of 100. That is still excellent. I'll put my grading scale down below in the description. I think I'm gonna start posting this in the description of every video review I do, just so you folks know exactly when I talk about these numbers, what they look like. But 85 out of 100 is very good for this bottle, and probably a lot better than a lot of people have been giving it. I haven't watched any reviews. I'm just kind of crowdsourcing some of the stuff that I've seen on social media. But 85 out of 100, I'm very happy with that. I could nose this whiskey all day long. And I think that's one of the key to kind of my relationship with Old Grandad is I think that has some of the best nose in kind of the whiskey kind of verse, if you like. Very happy that I was able to get this bottle. Won't be getting another one just because the price. Jim Beam maybe think about bringing that price down to $100, and I think you'll have a lot more happier people with this whiskey. With that being said, if you enjoyed today's video, definitely smash that like button. Go down below, hit the subscribe button. We're on the path to 10,000 subscribers. Let's get that together. With that being said, thank you for joining us as we drink through the world's whiskies, one glass at a time. Thanks for watching. Cheers.